very much for staying and coming to our panel. We don't have too much time here, so we'll try to get into business right away. This is a panel of currently Googlers, people that work for Google from different parts of the company, and these people are still, but they at a certain point of their career, they were founders. They went out there, they left what they did, they wanted to solve a problem. They went out there, they started a company. Some of them were actually acquired back to Google. Some of them went to different ways, but this is what we're going to talk about, learn and see what, how does their experience look like. So perhaps we'll do a round of introductions and we'll go from there. Miles?
Awesome, hi. My name is Miles Ward. I'm Global Head of Solutions for Google's cloud platform. I'm a 3-time startup founder, and all of them are dead.
As you see, I told you they're working for Google, so expect more.
So hi, I'm Nadav Haroni. Until recently, I was a product manager on the Android team, working on location and context related things like the Google Nearby APIs for devices to know that they're near each other. I'm currently working on a product that is not launched yet. It's a framework for distributed computing, and we're actually giving a preview of it and a demo downstairs at 3 o'clock, if anybody is interested to learn more about that project. Before that, I had a company that was acquired by Google, and we'll touch about that.
Great, and I'm David Lieb. I'm the product lead on Google Photos. Before that, I was the founder of a company called Bump. We made the iPhone app where you bump your phones together. We got acquired about 2 years ago now by Google. So.
Awesome. So who is using Google Photos here in the audience? Great. So whoever doesn't do this, either on Android or on iOS, you want to give it a try. But so let's talk about a little bit about what did you do before you jumped out of whatever you did and went to a startup, and what problems did you try to solve, and how did it end up?
Sure. So
pick any dead one.
Yeah, they're all. Oh, there's so much blood. The most recent, the largest startup, we got up to about 160 employees. We raised about $63 million in funding. We bought an enormous number of computers, and we didn't know what we were doing. So we kept putting the wrong parts in them and organizing them in ways that was inefficient. And we ended up building an application that sold for a catastrophic amount of money to the CIA, which is kind of cool. But we couldn't keep the thing alive to save our lives. So short story is you should either be really good at computers or stop trying to play with wires.
So I guess for me, if we go to what you did before the startup, so I was actually working at Google before the startup, and I thought it was a perfect time to leave when my wife was pregnant with twins. No better time to leave a solid job and start a company.
Playing it safe.
Yeah, played it safe. And for me, it was sort of going after my passion, going back to do a company around what I worked on in my PhD back when I was at the MIT Media Lab. And our company, Behavior, was basically working on opening up APIs for developers to have, and using all the sensors on a phone, and basically giving a simple, smart, human-level API to a developer about the behavior of the user so they can make smarter apps without killing the battery, basically. And so that was the company, which we knew was pretty hot, and at some point we got pretty quickly acquired back into Google, into a different part of Google. So that was an very interesting experience.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, so my path was interesting. I was an engineer at Texas Instruments, and at some point I kind of wanted to do more than just the engineering piece, so I thought I would go to business school and learn how to do all of that stuff. That's what you think you should do. And then I went to business school, and in the first week I had this idea for an iPhone app that would make my life easier for meeting all my classmates and getting their phone numbers. So we started working on that as a side project, and like every weekend we decided like, well, yeah, we should keep working on it this weekend. And we launched it on the App Store. It turned out to be a popular app. We quit grad school, came out here, and the rest was history. So it was a funny trajectory.
So specifically, both of you were acquired into Google. And if you think, and you joined Google after a lot of startup life, so if you think about one thing that worried you before you jump back to corporate life, and one thing that surprised you when you did jump into a large company with a lot of teams, but just a minute ago you were a CEO or founder of a startup. What happened before and right after?
So I think for me, the biggest worry I had going in, obviously, is this like perceived lack of control or loss of control when you sell your company and now you have a series of bosses. And I think the thing that surprised me actually was that, at least at Google, it's still a very entrepreneurial company in the sense that individuals that want to drive forward a vision or a product vision can actually do that. And so that was what we were able to do with Google Photos. So that was a big surprise to me. It worked out really well.
Can you give just another example? What is it that you could do that was harder to do before?
So, I mean, uniquely when you are at a company like Google, you can scale things much more quickly. So like one interesting anecdote, for Bump, we were one of the most popular apps of all time, and we fought for 5 years to get to 10 million monthly active users for our product, and we thought that was like really awesome. And then now here we are 5 months after launching Google Photos, and we just announced that we've crossed the 100 million mark already. So it's really cool to be able to do stuff at a scale that you just could never do at a startup.
Awesome. Nadav?
So I guess for us it was both a worry, like similar to what you said about losing control, but the opportunity. Because basically we were acquired at a very early stage, and we were in between beta and a full public launch of our platform and a sample app that used it. And we had a bunch of even investments lined up that we could do, and it was either take a lot of money and run forward, or do this acquisition deal in order to do more impact. And so we chose to gamble on the impact because we saw such an alignment of the vision between us and people that are the team that acquired us. And we ended up the same thing. We were worried at a totally different scale. We were worried about how do you get the first 100,000 customers and how do you pitch to them. At Google, you're starting to think, I'm baking what I'm doing into Android. We're going to flip it to 1 billion users. How do we do it right? You have to think about the privacy. You have to think about lots of interesting aspects of how to make it easy to understand and simple. And that was a pretty amazing thing. And really the same thing that David was saying, how inside Google, it's the same entrepreneurial ecosystem as even outside, and even more ruthless, because you have to pitch your product inside the company and actually really convince, and rather than somebody from up top saying, hey, everybody should follow this lead, right? That's a very interesting aspect of Google.
Mostly I was worried about lunch. My dad's a restaurateur, his dad's a restaurateur. I'm used to being able to eat very tasty things, and at my startups we would throw barbecues and outside lunches and all sorts of stuff that made us feel like we had a home and had a culture and had friends and were doing something beyond poking the computers all day long. And at Google, I was really blown away. One, they never screw up lunch, which was pretty outstanding. And you earn this community of friends and new peers and new relationships faster than I expected was possible in sort of what seemed to me like a big corporate structure. Like, oh dear, they're gonna make it so we're all robots or monsters or something. It's been an incredible opportunity, one of the great joys of my life, to make new friends inside of a community full of just brilliant, fun people.
So, in terms of scaling, one of the problems with scaling and challenges with scaling is that you may lose touch with the market, with the customers, with the developers, right? When you're a startup, you are very much in touch with the field, but you want to go and talk to Google and other companies and to scale. It seems like when you go into a large company like Google, then you get the scaling part, you get the friendship part, but what about the connection to the field, to the customers? Are they hiding behind marketing and PR, or do you still have control and understanding and the ability to iterate? Miles, start.
So I work with customers every day in my role. It's one of the things that I'm happiest about.
How important is it for you to work? Because I'm sure you have tons of other stuff to do.
It's the most important thing that I do. So when I'm able to work together with engineers and leaders inside of a business and them go from feeling blocked and unable to move forward in the design of their infrastructure to having systems that work and don't cost very much and are able to deliver value, that happens to me 2-3 times a day. That is a cool way to spend an afternoon. And it's an entirely unique experience each time. I think a lot of engineers that I work with come from months and years hacking away on the same kind of a problem. When you put them in front of customers and they get a new problem every other hour, that is a really pleasant sensation.
And Stan, I think, especially as a product manager, you really need to own your product almost like a CEO in a company. And it means going out there, going even to conferences like this, just talking to people on the ground, going to the small developers, and all the way, because of Google, you have the way to reach the biggest companies that are developing. And sometimes it's easier to actually get people outside to try your product than teams inside Google. And it's a really good way to get real feedback, and really, especially if you're building something for developers. So that's a huge opportunity and impact, and the developer relations teams and the marketing teams are basically channels to help the product team itself. And I think also when the engineering team starts getting real feedback, through early access programs or other external testers, and so every bug that's reported gets treated immediately because people are really passionate about that, because you close the loop really fast that you don't think you'll see in a big company like Google.
It's a great, I'm a feisty guy, and so I write bugs. I say, this thing's broken and crappy, we should fix it. And no one ever listens to me until there's a customer on there. And then it all goes nuts. And there's zillions of developers that are diving, oh, the customer's got a problem, oh, we gotta figure this thing out. Like, if it's just me, obnoxious Googler, they're, get in line.
Yeah, so I have a very consumer-facing product, obviously. At the startup, I did all of the customer support for like the first 3 years. So I would spend like 2 hours every night responding to emails. And one of the tricks I would do is if somebody emailed complaining about our product and they had their like little email footer with their phone number, is I would just call them straight up and say like, hey, you emailed us, like, what can I help you with? And I learned a bunch of really great things by actually talking to real users. They don't let me do that at Google anymore, but we still touch and talk to our users on a daily basis, whether it's via social channels, via email. We have like an amazing user support and user feedback group that brings people in for interviews. So everything that you did at a startup, like in a scrappy way, Google generally has a professionalized way that lets you scale it to huge numbers of users. So it's actually really great. It works very well.
Awesome. So last round of questions. Thoughts about a tip or a thought that you could give from your experience to entrepreneurs. You know how it is. They need to do so many things, but they sometimes not sure about what can you expect from Google or from companies like Google. How can we help you as a founder, as an entrepreneur? What can we do, what can't we do, and what's the best way to use your limited time as a founder, as an entrepreneur, to leverage Google to your benefit? Some thoughts from your experience. Where is the point that you should invest your time and energy?
So, one small thing, I don't know if it's necessarily Google specific, but 2 things that really helped us move very fast is just being open about what we did and showing even raw things around in different meetings and conferences. And those kicked off the serendipitous conversations that led to customers, that led to eventually the acquisition, that led to these conversations, rather than waiting till you have a polished product or that. The other thing about Google is all the APIs that you have, all these services, that really make sure before you invest time inside the company, what can you leverage that's outside from Google or from other services to bring you up fast to the solution that you want. And later maybe you rewrite it again, but just think about your time is so precious, then whatever exists, others might have done already, to figure out a way to integrate that in the fastest way.
I'd look for smart critics. Find someone who will tell you you cannot do the thing that you're off trying to do, and then ask them why. And then have them say, well, you can't do it because of this. And there's line item number 1 you have to solve. You can't do it because of this. Well, there's line number 2. Right? My business grew specifically because we had people telling us it was absolutely impossible to do what we were doing. And Google can help you find those people through G+. Or you could also reach out to them using Gmail. Just a thought.
So this is maybe a slightly scandalous answer. I think that as a founder, you can look at things in a slightly different way, and you probably will see some things that big companies like Google either see differently or don't see at all yet, and you should go attack those areas. So like when we were starting Bump, I looked at it and I was like, it's ridiculous that 2 phones sitting 10 centimeters apart can't talk to each other. Like, why not? And we looked at what big companies were doing, and all the solutions just really were bad. And so we were able to say, like, we should fix that. And our ignorance about how hard that problem was actually allowed us to do it. So I think that's the best thing you can use these big companies for, is to figure out, like, what things aren't they really getting right? What things are they ignoring because